Well, good afternoon, folks. It is a rainy day here today. We've got thunderstorms coming through. Actually, so far it's just been a gentle rain, but there's a threat of severe thunderstorms for the rest of the afternoon. So obviously I can't do any work outside, but it's a shop afternoon, shall we say. Here in the D14, the Allis Chalmers D14, you can see the crud on the top of the engine. I think what my problem is, and this was this way when I got the tractor, is that the valve cover here has a gasket right in here where it joins the top of the engine. And when that gasket wears out, that allows oil to push out through there when the engine is running. And I think that's what some of this crud is from. So what I'm planning to do here, among other tasks that we may get to, is I want to replace that valve cover gasket. Now, thanks to Allstate's Ag Parts, I ordered a new one that's supposed to fit. As you can see, it's made out of cork and has the rubber bushings, the rubber spacers there for the bolts on the top too to seal it. So we'll see how it goes. I've never tried to do this before. My son, the mechanic, said it's pretty straightforward. So hopefully I won't run into anything major. Another project that has to be done on this tractor, I don't know if I'll get to today or not, is it is running rough, so it needs a good tune-up. I've gotten the points and the condenser. I've gotten a new distributor cap, new plug wires, new plugs. So that'll be the next thing to tackle on this. It is not running the way it should, and I don't think it's a carburation issue. I think it's a spark issue, that just maybe the points are getting worn, the plugs are starting to foul out. Again, these are the ones that were on the tractor when I got it a year ago, so I don't know how long they've been on there, but that'll be a second job to do. I've never changed points before. I have done plugs, plug wires, distributor caps, but I've never done anything with points before. So we'll see if I can figure out how to do that to get it so that it's timed properly and it starts purring again instead of this labored operating that way it seems to be doing now. So we'll see if these two repairs will improve the performance of the tractor, and also it gives me an opportunity then to clean up some of this gunk. I know I've got some oil on the floor here, and some of it's dripping off of there from when I used the tractor. It's not leaking a lot of oil, but it's got to be fixed or it's only going to get worse. So hang in there, we'll come back to you and you can see the next step. Alright, as you can see, I got the valve cover off, and you can see the top of the engine here. The two center bolts that stick up have a lot of gunk on them, so that must have been leaking through there for one thing. You can see the front and the rear bolts are pretty clear, but these two in the middle, I already wiped some of the gunk off, so I've got to get that cleaned up. And you can see the inside of the valve cover there has some gunk in it. These little pieces here were all that was essentially left of the gasket that was underneath. There's still some of it on here that I've got to scrape off, but as you can see, it was in rough shape. So I've got a lot of cleaning to do here before I can put anything new back on. It was just 4 bolts with washers and then these rubber gaskets that sealed it, or were supposed to seal it there in the top holes of the valve cover, as you can see. So I will be replacing them, obviously. I cleaned up the bolts and the washers, the metal washers, as I took them off, so they'll be ready to go back on. Hopefully I won't run into any other kind of glitching problems here. As I said, I'm certainly not an expert on mechanics or engines, but it looks like this is fairly straightforward. I don't see any obvious problems here with the valves. Everything looks like it's in good shape. It's bathed in oil, so it wasn't running dry in any sense. It doesn't look too worn that I can see, and I don't see any other major problems. So maybe I just don't have experienced enough eyes, but what we're going to do is we're going to clean this up and put it back together and see what happens. All right, next step coming. All right, folks, well, I've done the best I can to kind of clean off this surface where the gasket's going to sit. Looks fairly clean. I got most of the gunk out of there that I could get off the bolts and stuff that was kind of down in the top of the engine. And then I also took care of cleaning up. Yeah, it actually was orange under all that. Cleaned it fairly well. It's not perfect and it could use some new paint, but I got most of the gunk out of the inside and the outside, so I think it'll be a lot cleaner than it was. So now the next step is to put the new gasket on there, put the cover back on. These are the old rubber gaskets. They slide on first, and then what comes, the metal washers, and finally the bolts on the top, so, or the nuts on the top. So that'll be the next move. All right, we have put the cork gasket on the top of the engine right there. You can see it's just under the valve cover there. And there, it's in the best position it can be. I also put the 4 rubber washers or gaskets on, and then I started by putting the bolts and metal washers on. So I'll put the 4 of those on, tighten it down, and then that should be done. Now we'll see how that works. The other thing I may end up having to do, this oil breather cap that was on here is kind of mangled up a bit. I'll clean it up a bit more before I put it in. I just wanted to make sure there was nothing leaking out of there, that it was, because there was a lot of gunk down this down the tube, the fill tube here. So I just want to make sure that I don't have a defective one of those. If I start to see more oil coming back out, then I know it was that too. But it was definitely these 2 rubber gaskets in the middle. The old ones had failed because there was gunk down on the shaft of these, and the front and rear ones were absolutely clean. So we'll see how it goes, but that's where we are. Well, okay, folks, here we are. Everything's put back together. Don't see any oil leaks coming out the top, around the gasket, or around the rubber washers at the top. Everything looks solid. So we'll see how it goes. Maybe that solves some of the problem of all this gunk on the side of the engine. So we'll see. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our channel.